Softlandings is an advanced method of handover and project management in the building industry, which is effectively intended to link performance outcomes like lower carbon, lower energy, lower utility bills to the design efforts that were put into it and the strategies that were intended to achieve those outcomes. So what we try and do is to stay with the building as the design team, the owners, the occupiers, for as long as we can after the project, typically about between 1 to 3 years, to make sure that the strategies we put in place are actually delivering what they were there to deliver in the first place.
The Camden Passivhaus is London's first passivhaus. It was designed by Bere architects and constructed on Ranulph Road in 2010. So our clients for the Camden Passivhaus were Malcolm and Fiona Terry, who commissioned the house for their daughter, who's now living there with her partner.
Victoria and Mert absolutely love living in the house because it's warm, it's cosy.
When they first moved in, if you remember, there was thick snow because it was November, December 2010, and we were worried because the house appeared cold, and then it transpired they didn't have any heating on at all. So for a whole week of sub-zero temperatures, there was no heating and they still lived in the house.
At Bere Architects, we adopt the Softlandings process for all of our projects. And this covers our projects from inception through to post-completion. In fact, it goes through to sort of 2 to 3 years post-completion. And as part of the Technology Strategy Board monitoring of the house, we're looking specifically at Softlandings phases 4 and 5, looking at the aftercare that we provide for the clients, and having a look forensically to see how this is helping the clients to settle into their new home and how this is, or if it is, helping to resolve problems before they become critical.
Stage 4 of Softlandings is the initial aftercare period. So this is when the building's been handed over, the occupants have moved in, they're just getting settled, they might be unpacking furniture. This is the period where the design team stays put. Normally they would sort of move on to other projects and their contract would effectively be closed out. This isn't the case in a Softlandings project. They have to be there and they have to be involved. So the delivery team will be preferably on site for about 6 weeks, periodically for the first initial occupation period for the occupants.
The house is finished, we moved in, Justin comes and sees us, you come and see us. We've been almost pestered by the architects to come and check that everything was working well and that everything was working as it should do.
Softlanding stage 5 is effectively the aftercare and the long-term monitoring stage of the project. So this is something that hasn't previously really existed in the building industry, but it's where the design and the delivery team really stay engaged for the next 1 to 3 years after handover of the building. So what we do is we monitor the energy consumption, we monitor certain key systems, we might monitor the environmental conditions inside the building, and we periodically go back and check and make sure that the building's actually delivering the value that it's supposed to.
The Camden Passivhaus is being monitored as part of the Technology Strategy Board's Building Performance Evaluation Programme. This is looking at the performance of buildings in their early occupancy, post-completion phases, and looking at how they're performing compared to their design performance. We're working with University College London, UCL, to monitor the performance of the building. We're working with Dr. Ian Ridley from UCL on this monitoring, and he's working with a number of his PhD students and master's students on looking at the performance of the house in different aspects, in the fabric performance and also in the in-use performance.
We started monitoring the house in July 2011, and the project will run for a further 2 years. But the early data which we've collected so far suggests that the house is performing very well. We're certainly not getting extremely high levels of space heating consumption or domestic hot water use, and generally speaking, the data we've downloaded so far, the house is performing slightly better than we would expect in terms of space heating demand.
Fiona, before the project started, you were worried about having cold bathroom floors and also about not having a radiator in the house. How have you found the internal temperatures?
I'm completely converted because I must admit I was very sceptical about the idea of having ceramic floor with no underfloor heating, but you and I just went down there just now and it feels like there is underfloor heating. I mean, it feels like there's underfloor heating under this floor that we're sitting where we're sitting now, doesn't it?
And what about not having a radiator in the house?
Well, it's absolutely boiling in here. If you put a radiator on, you'd be too hot.
It's early days. I think we'll only really know after the full 2 years of monitoring. But so far it seems to suggest that the occupants are behaving in a sensible way. They understand how to use the house. And I think certainly talking to the occupants, they are finding it very, very comfortable.
So part of this process of monitoring and evaluating is looking at the energy consumption, but also the occupant satisfaction. So you're looking at it not just from a purely technical performance standpoint, but also a much kind of softer standpoint is, are users happy with the building? Do they feel comfortable? Do they think there's enough light? They're really basic things that actually make a tremendous difference to how productive people feel in buildings.
Because here, what we're finding is that the relative humidity of the air, that's combination of the heat and also the dryness, it's just perfect.
Exactly, and that's why it has that sort of cosy feeling.
Yeah.
You feel very comfortable here,
yes,
and calm actually,
yes,
which you don't feel in our house.
yeah.
Which is not because the interior does not sort of speak in that way. It's actually the ambience. It's the air quality, isn't
Yes.
it? And the heat of that air quality, the perfect heat of that air
Yes.
quality.
We'll now log on to the Ranulph Road Passive House. So we'll be able to see the live conditions in the house at the moment. So it's the 9th of December, so it's quite cold outside. And here we can see the temperature conditions inside the house. So at the moment it's quite comfortable. The bathroom is 22.5 degrees C. It's good, the relative humidity is low, it's only 42% in the bathroom. So that suggests that the ventilation system is working well.
As part of the TSB, we did a bus methodology user satisfaction questionnaire for the Camden Passivhaus. It came out very well overall. It was rated very highly in design, health and comfort overall. And in the control section of the perceived user control, there was so full control was kind of felt by the occupants in terms of heating, in terms of lighting, and then for summertime temperature and summertime ventilation, they felt they didn't have so much control, and those things are probably linked.
One thing that we found really interesting was that the occupant did not use the blinds as we expected at the house. So during the summer months, she was actually leaving the blinds up, whereas they were programmed to be coming down when the sun was out, so she'd overridden the automatic control. So this meant that we expected the temperatures in the house to rise quite a lot and potentially become uncomfortable.
Very top floor in the kitchen and the living room, for about 10% of the summer, a little bit less, temperatures were quite high. This data just caught the little Indian summer we had at the end of September. Some of the evidence why this was happening was that the occupants were choosing not to use the blinds in the upstairs section of the house. You can see that in the downstairs of the house, where the blinds were closed, in bedroom 1 and bedroom 2, you can see that you're getting much more comfortable temperatures, and the mean temperature is roughly 23 degrees C, so very comfortable for summer conditions.
It turned out that the temperatures did rise slightly in the house, but the occupant had actually decided that she enjoyed the warmer temperatures. If you look at the BUS survey, the Builder User Survey for the Camden Passivhaus, the occupant actually states that the summer temperatures are a little bit too cold rather than too warm, which shows that her manipulation with the blinds was very much intentional and created a more enjoyable internal environment for her.
The health and quality of life is a major factor because our daughter suffers from asthma, so therefore with the fresh air coming through filters, it meant that you had a wonderful environment, exactly. Health is important. The quality of air is outstanding. One only has to look at the filters after 6 months to realise the rubbish that is being filtered out of the air.
The big advantage of an MVHR system is that they have filters which can greatly reduce the level of particulates in the air. Especially in London, it's noticeable when you clean the filters from an MVHR system, you can see just how much soot and nasty particulate diesel smoke there is.
So the actual environment inside the house could not be better in terms of temperature, the air one breathes, and the low fuel costs.
Generally speaking, so far things seem to be going well. We've identified a few niggling problems, so I think we're at the stage at the moment where we are ironing out some of the and trying to optimise specifically the performance of the boiler. So we were able to identify that some of the central heating pumps and the pump on the solar hot water system was on 24 hours a day. So obviously that was increasing the parasitic loads. So we've been able to identify that, and then working with the engineering team, resolve that, and now we've successfully reduced the parasitic loads of the boiler. So I think it will be an ongoing process. I think for the first heating season we'll be optimising, identifying problems and then solving them, and then I think in the second year of monitoring, that will be when we'll get the real in-use performance of the house when it's been set up as everyone would wish it to be set up.
One of the things you often hear about low energy buildings is that the unregulated emissions and the user behaviour have adversely affected the performance of the building, and that's quite often blamed for as a reason, or the primary reason for a building underperforming. But what we found with the Camden Passivhaus is that by using the Passivhaus methodology, the building's actually performing to its design data, even with the unexpected user behaviour and the occupant interaction with the building. So when blinds are not used as expected, or windows are opened for longer than expected at different times of the year than expected, the building still manages to respond very well and perform as expected.
Well, the house works in a very efficient manner because it requires very little heating even when it's sub-zero out there. So it proves the passive house concept works in reality in the UK, in London.